Cool. So thank you. Welcome everyone across the globe. We're almost there, 2 days with so much content, really interesting. So hopefully you will also learn a lot from us. I'm Raquel. I'm a lead designer based in Portugal. With me today, I have Casandra, a design system specialist based in Denmark. And then I have Christoph, a design system lead based in Germany. And together we are a part of amazing team of 10 designers, which I will show you a bit of their faces in a few slides. And we built a real Figma plugin in 48 hours during the hackathon, as Sil was mentioning. Keep in mind that none of us ever built a Figma plugin before. So if you're sitting there and thinking, that's not really for me, maybe this talk might change that. So we have an amazing talk with David, basically showing us a bit on how to build a Figma plugin. So think of our talk as a mix of our testimonial with our process and some tips for beginners, mostly for beginners in between, and how we make it all happen. And you can also learn how to make it on your own later. So let's dive into it. So before I play the demo, I just want to explain a bit the problem that we were trying to solve first. So swapping libraries in Figma only works when a component name match exactly. When the moment that name is not the same, it changes. You're stuck doing this swap manually, one by one, which is a bit painful. On the left side, you will see that the first section, we have components using one testing library, first one, which is called Untitled UI. And then the second session, we have some detached buttons. As you can see, it's going to be promising. So I'm going to do the play. You start putting your personal access token, and then you put the URL of the Figma library that you want to swap with. Then you can choose whether you want to scan the entire page or just a selection. And then the plugin, it does give you a suggestions of what would match best to the selection. And basically you can switch. So he can give you a suggestion, but you're not obligated to, swap right what he wants. For instance, here, we can change circle to square to circle and stuff like that. So not only you can also switch the variants, but also you can swap on the component level. So here we have button, and then we are changing to another component, which is called button danger. And once again, even when you switch the component, you can also do and see the before and after it. Once you're satisfied with all of this, you click on swap components. And as you can see now, again, my left side of the screen, voila, you have all the components swapped with the new library, which you're using simple design system, and the detached were reattached again. This is a version history, so you can take a look of what exactly you already swapped in the past. And as a small asterisk, you have dark mode because, we like to go big. But I think here, the big extra, as you can see, is that no more detached components. For us, it was an amazing discovery while doing this. So it's really an extra for us. So that's a bit of Swap Wizard. And we're going to show you how did we got here. So this is our team. We basically passed most of our time on Discord, basically talking with each other. We were 10 designers who never met before across some different zones. And so we have Ana Diaco, Casandra Sandu here on the call, Yuan Shui, Matthew Coadon, then Christoph Hellmuth here on the call as well. Then we have Kimberly Wilkie, Tiago Diniz, Nicole Kanda, and then Ronald de Moraes. And then me. I go nameless. No, I'm Raquel Pereira. We use 5 tools. We have Figma, GitHub, Cursor, Lovable, and Claude. So we got wild. And now we're going to see how we use them as we go. And as you can see from our reactions in Slack, we won the first place. But as Sil was mentioning, we were 150 designers, and we were far from the only ones that built something remarkable. So kudos to all the participants and the jury as well that follow up that weekend. For the second place, we had Edgy, which was a user flow analyzer that helps you to find the edges cases you miss on your design. And then the third place, it went to Enabler, which is bringing proper version control to Figma library. So I think we were talking about that a bit on the Davis talk, so maybe you can also take a look later, and we can provide you the links of all of this on the resource later. So now I'm going to show you how we did all of this. So when you have AI available and the deadline ticking, it's not that good, just ticking. The temptation is to open Cursor immediately and just start prompting right away because, oh, this is going to bring me already immediate results. And as we've been seeing the 2 last days, that's not going to happen. So we don't recommend you to do that. We actually spend the first few hours, even though that we have a very short slot of time, we spend the first few hours not writing any single line of code. Instead, we first define our product scope definition. And then we listed every feature that we could imagine. And then we sorted them out in 3 buckets: must have, nice to have, and out of scope. Because in 2 days, you cannot build everything. So if it wasn't a must have, it could wait. If you think about it, you can also apply this in your reality, in your project, whether it's a big or a small one. And before you next prompt, just define exactly what you want to build, and you can do this simple exercise by yourself. And I think these decisions can save you a lot of hours. Once we knew more or less what we want to build, we did technical research before writing any prompts. And this was really critical, because the plugin needed to work in a specific sequence. It would scan the components, fetch the new library, run AI matching, let the user review, create a safe snapshot, swap it, and then audit. And during the research, we hit a critical discovery. It was a big constraint. We weren't able to allow the users to browse for external libraries inside of the plugin. If we haven't discovered this early, we would have spent hours prompting with AI to build something that it was technically not possible, according to the documentation that we studied at the time. So we founded 2 workarounds. The first one is the user selects a simple component from the new library to give the plugin a reference point. And then the other one where the users provided the library URL and the personal access token, which is what you saw at the beginning of the demo. And of course, we also used AI to explore what the plugin interface could look like to give us inspiration later to make it all pretty and fancy. So we generated multiple UI variations using Claude and then combined the best parts into a more cohesive design. We also set up a shared GitHub repository. As you can imagine, with 10 people across multiple time zones, this gave the whole team a source of truth. So everyone could see exactly what was changing, who changed it, and when. And crucially, it gave us version control. So if something broke, we could roll back and working stayed in seconds. We also choose GitHub because it also integrates directly with Cursor, which Casandra will show you briefly, and made the workflow a bit more smoother. And we also have the talk from yesterday with Freya, but just a reminder as well in context. If Git is new to you, we thought that this would be the 6 concepts that you should more or less know about. And Figma actually inspired on this when they introduced branching on Figma. So you have the main version, which is basically your stable version of the project. Then you have a branch, which is a safe replica of that main, where you can experiment and work on your specific task. Then you have commits, which is a safe checkpoint, like a version history on Figma, where you describe what you've been working on. And then you have these 3 actions, which are the most obvious ones, or the most repeated ones. You have push, as the name tells you, upload your local stuff, local changes to the GitHub. You have pull, which means you download the latest changes from the GitHub to your local stuff, to your computer. And then you have a pull request, which is basically a proposal where you merge all of the things that you've been working on from the branches to the main version. And there's a time when everyone else can review it. So think of this as when we are reviewing branches on Figma. It's more or less that moment. Now, prompting. It's been a lot of talk during this conference about prompting, right? So we also give you some tips just to consolidate. So we think that a good prompt needs 3 things. Clarity, meaning that you need be specific on what you want. And this really helps you a lot in our experience in the hackathon. Context, meaning giving the AI information all about your project, your tech stack, your goals. And constraints, meaning telling what the platform is targeting, what patterns you want him to follow, what he should avoid. Because if your prompt is missing this, AI will guess for you, and that guessing can cost you a lot of time and money. So in a very simple way, if you have these 3 ingredients in mind, basically you should add features step by step, one at a time. You should start a new session for new features. And this is, for instance, in my personal opinion, it's a pain point that I have because I often forget to change the chats with the agents when I'm doing stuff. So keep this in mind because this is a huge impact on your experience and results, and basically not spending all of your credits randomly. You should roll back if something breaks. So immediately, as soon as you have with your backups. And if everything goes well, you should test these features after each edition. If you're not that good of prompt, as Eddie was sharing yesterday on Miro, and I'm also quite emotional sometimes talking with the machine, so I'm still also need to learn from this advice. If you're not so sure about how to write, then you can ask AI to write it for you. So you use one platform of AI to structure and refine your prompt, and it also helps you on, learning how to prompt exactly by seeing what eventually he gives you. And then you use that polished and fancy prompt to the other platform that you're actually doing the work. Also, keep in mind that prompt costs money. And at least for all of us, and I think for me as well, this was like a big flash news. Like I need to be, saving money to prompt things because on the internet, we don't need to save that kind of thing. But especially for the beginners, every time that you send a prompt, you are consuming a token. A token is roughly 3/4 of a word. And in most license, it depends on the license, of course, but you don't have unlimited usage, as you can concluding from the 2 days that we've been having these talks. And so those tokens are usually tied to a budget, and each token is tied to a cost. And those are limited to a per widget usage window. So sometimes tokens can be renewed by hour, sometimes it could be a monthly counted. So it really depends on what you're using. But we gave you 2 examples. So the first one is a vague prompt, and this vague prompt will force AI to read more of your files, reasoning for longer and produce a longer response. And as you can see, we spend a lot of tokens here from the table in the middle. So it costs you like $9 over 2 minutes with low precision. But the other one, the more clear and effective prompt with the right model, it costs you like almost nothing. It responds in seconds and it was way more accurate. So we did this calculation, and actually the first prompt, it's 500 times more expensive than the second. And also just to help you, because sometimes there's also this, notion of, oh, but which model should I use? Because I don't know exactly how the pricing works. So the most expensive actually don't mean that you will give direct better results. And so fast models usually are great for quick edits and everyday tasks, and high reasoning models are better when you need a deeper analysis and complex problem solving. So just for you to understand these type of fancy tables, because often this is available. This came from Coursera, by the way, official pages, but there's multiple stuff that you can see this. But for instance, we have input, output, and cache read. So input means this is what the AI will charge to read your prompt. Output is what it charges to generate you a new response. And cache read is the discount rate that it's reusing context from the earlier in the same session. And the good thing about Coursera, which is what we used mostly in our hackathon, is that if you don't know which model you should use, they have this option, which is auto mode. And so basically it selects you the right model for the task automatically. It's basically studying your prompts, and it gives you choose for you the best model. So you don't need to worry about that or burning token randomly. And it really saves you a lot. And now I'll end off to Cassandra, which will show you how we put all in this in action inside of Cursor.
Perfect. Thank you. So once you've created your GitHub space, the next step is, of course, to bring it into Cursor. And you can do this very simply by cloning the repository directly from Cursor's main screen. You can just search by your project by name, select it, and then choose a folder on your computer where the plugin is going to live going forward and where all of your changes are going to be added as you progress. Once your project is in Cursor, you're ready to go, but this is where things can either start working very smoothly or be surprisingly frustrating. And the difference usually comes down to how you use it. Cursor isn't just one tool, it has different modes, and choosing the right one can completely change how effective you are. So let me quickly break them down. Agent mode is your do-it-for-me mode. It can read your files, it can modify code, it can execute tasks across your project. So when you already know what you want, this is your go-to. Plan mode is more about thinking before doing. It helps you structure ideas and break things down into clear, actionable steps before you start writing any code. Ask mode is your learning and exploration space. You can use it when you want to understand something, get explanations, or validate decisions. And lastly, debug mode is exactly what it sounds like, but instead of jumping straight into fixing things, it helps you identify the root cause first. It can even add temporary logs or tests, so you know that you're solving the right problem, not just the visible one. So it's important to remember to use the right mode for the task. That can help you solve problems faster, use those tokens that Raquel mentioned more efficiently, and actually take full advantage of what the tool can do. Let me show you how that looked like in practice for us building the plugin. At the beginning, we didn't jump straight into building one shared solution. Instead, we decided to explore things individually and try to build something on our own. So for the first couple of hours, we kept things small, just simple plugin versions to understand the space and share our learnings with the team. And the key tool here for us was the plan mode. As you've already heard, these agents use tokens every time you interact with them. But what we found out was that a lot of those tokens get spent early on when you're still figuring out what you're actually building. But plan mode makes that stage more efficient. Instead of jumping into code, it helps you ask the right questions, structure your idea, and define the scope upfront. So for example, my prompt was actually very simple. I just described that I only wanted to build a simple prototype for a Figma plugin that could swap libraries of components. Keep in mind that this was a 48 hours prototype, but you can use all of the different advice that you've gotten these 2 days to make your prompt even better. But after asking me a few questions and then getting the right answers, Cursor helped turning that into a clear and structured plan. I could easily review that plan, make any changes before building. And from here on, the rest of the process was just going back and forth with simple and precise prompts using the agent mode. We weren't trying to get everything perfect from the start. In the beginning, our goal was to only get a working prototype in code. So we didn't worry about having the ideal structure. We didn't worry about using a proper framework like Plugma, because those things can get really overwhelming really quickly. We just built something that worked, knowing that we can refactor it later and we can deal with that later. So that's something for you to remember. You don't have to have all the answers up front. You can start small, iterate, and improve as you go. After generating our plan, we noticed that Cursor was going to use the Figma REST API, and we really needed to understand what's actually possible through the API. Cursor can help interpret documentation, but it's still important to explore it for yourself. And that's often where you can discover key capabilities or even limitations. Now, I know that documentation can feel very overwhelming, but remember that your goal isn't to just understand everything. It's just to validate your assumptions, spot different constraints early. In our case, we already knew that we wanted to work with detached components. So we could easily go to Figma developer docs to figure out if we could actually detect or manipulate them through the API. And instead of reading everything, we just did something very simple, which searched for the term detached in the docs, which is quite obvious. But it led us to a key insight. Frames that used to be components still retain information about their origin. So we took that insight and brought it straight back into Cursor. That was very simple because agent mode really shines when you have precise prompts. You found out what you wanted to do and have an exact idea of how to do it. I used a very straightforward prompt by using detached info from the Figma API. Can we also suggest swaps for detached components? And that was enough to move things forward. I didn't need to paste documentation links, explain where the information came from. Cursor automatically found the relevant docs, understood the context, and used it in its reasoning. So just by asking the right questions, you can let the agents do all the heavy lifting. It also works the other way around. You can use the ask mode to understand why something was implemented in a certain way, to learn more about specific development concepts, or just explore what might be worth investigating further. So AI tools don't have to be used only as your vibe coding partners that generate code for you. They can also be very powerful learning tools, helping you understand decisions, uncover best practices, and build that real technical knowledge along the way that is helping us bridge this gap between design and development. Prompt by prompt, we built the first version of Swap Wizard. As you can see in the video that maybe can be played now. This was an early prototype, but it was already working. And the cool part was that we could run it directly inside Figma. And we did that very simple by importing the plugin using the manifest file, which is one of the first things that Cursor will generate when you're building a Figma plugin. We could immediately start testing how our solution behaved in the real design files. And that fast feedback loop meant that we weren't just writing code or prompting Cursor, we were validating it as it went, step by step. And later that day, we regrouped after pushing our experiments to GitHub. We reviewed what each of us had explored, what we found out, and we aligned on a common direction to move forward. And let me show you what that collaboration looked like for us in practice. GitHub was our code hub. We ended up merging 28 pull requests in less than 48 hours, each of them reviewed before going into main. So when someone finished a feature, they opened the PR, someone else reviewed it, caught any issues if there were any, and then approved it. Slack was where we communicated. We shared bugs with video recordings, tagged the right people, even categorized issues like critical, minor improvements, nice to haves, so it was easy for us to prioritize. And Figma was our design source of truth. Our UI was living there, our test files, because we've tested this plugin extensively before the end of the hackathon, and also the running plugin were there to play with and test. And this, of course, all had to work async because we were in different time zones and nothing could be blocked, right? So these tools allowed us to keep moving without needing to be all online at the same time. But honestly, even if you're working solo, I think this still applies. Track your changes, document your decisions, and keep things organized, because that gives you the safe space to try things out and fail. And trust me, all of that effort that you put into creating that structure is totally worth it. As we started collaborating more and more on the same code base, we also started running into real issues. And that's where things got interesting. As designers, we're really good at spotting problems. We spend a lot of time reviewing products, catching inconsistencies, edge cases, things that just don't feel right. But what we don't always know is how to fix those problems in code. And here's where working with a tool like Cursor becomes really powerful. Because often, identifying the problem is already 80% of the solution. Now, when you're vibe coding, the instinct is usually to say something is wrong and start guessing. You try different fixes, you iterate back and forth, you use a lot of your tokens, And sometimes you end up in the loop and still don't solve the root issue. And we ran exactly into that. Some components in our dropdown weren't displayed correctly. Some properties were shown directly instead of being grouped into a component name. It certainly looked wrong, but we didn't really know immediately why. The approach that helped us move forward was switching to debug mode. One slide after this, there it is. Debug mode changed how we approach the problem. So instead of guessing, it helped us inspect what was actually happening step by step. As you can see here in this very quick video, it just starts generating a few hypotheses about what might be actually causing the issue. And then instead of jumping into fixes, it adds some temporary logs, it adds some instrumentation to gather evidence. And this is especially useful for bugs that don't have an obvious source. It reduces that back and forth, avoids wasting your tokens on trial and error fixes, and often might be solving your issue in one go. In our case, I only provided a single screenshot showing the issue in the dropdown, and that was enough for debug mode to start narrowing things down and find out what was actually wrong and solving the problem. But now, even with all of this, don't expect that all of your bugs will be solved in a matter of minutes with AI. Even with such powerful tools, things will still break. So I will hand it over to Christoph, who's going to talk to us about how to deal with that in practice.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm going to cover the part of the process that we rarely talk about, and that rarely gets talked about in AI tutorials. What happens when things break? Because with vibe coding, they will break a lot. It's part of the process. And I think everybody who has at least vibe coded and experimented a bit came to similar situations where in the first hour you're polite, everything's going well, you talk to the AI, say please and thank you, and then the first bugs get introduced, and 10 hours later, you're still working on the same feature, you're in the loop, you're telling the AI, please fix it, it introduces a new bug, you tell it, please fix that, and after 10 hours, you're like really, really frustrated, and you're actually getting rude with the AI maybe sometimes. And this is basically where we want to introduce vibe debugging. So it's the other side of vibe coding, where with vibe coding, we also have some great approaches. With vibe debugging, we're also going to show you some tricks to make it more effective to you as well. So first of all, of course, version control and backup. So before you do any changes with your agent, always make sure to commit the working code. So if anything goes catastrophically wrong, you can always have a save point and go back and be safe. Then make sure to go step by step. So think of a feature, execute it, test it, and then do the next one. Because if you do too much at the same time, you may introduce a bug in feature 1, but you're already at feature 5, and now you have to figure out all the spaghetti code. Where did things go wrong? And it will cost you a ton of tokens. Then, of course, if you find a bug, the more information you can find out together with the AI maybe, and the more information you can give the AI about the bug, the easier it will be for it to fix it. So even just taking a screenshot of maybe what's visually wrong, maybe what does the output say, or what goes wrong, can give the AI just the little push to find out where to fix it. And that's where debug logs helps as well. So if you ever work maybe with the browser inspector or with console logs, it's really good to tell the AI, hey, maybe let's introduce some debug logs, maybe give me the error there, and then just copy and paste the error to the AI, again, giving it a bit more context and prompting it to fix the bug just a bit better. Now, let's take it to the next level for your workflows and agents with AI skills. And we have heard a bit about AI skills before. So think of AI skills as not just a generic prompt, but basically as a structured, repeatable capability, which breaks overall down into 3 key components that transform your agent from a general agent who can do everything good, but nothing too well, into kind of like a subject matter expert that you control. So every skill has basically 3 key points. And the first one is the trigger, which tells the skill basically when should I execute it. The second one is the instruction, which gives it a step-by-step instruction of what should I do. So basically what. And then, of course, we have tools, and this is really cool because you can actually include code snippets. So the AI doesn't need to generate every time a new code snippet, and you can run it over and over again, only checking once, making sure that it runs. Now, what makes skills, of course, so powerful is that they're modular, fast, and reliable. So they can be stacked like Legos, meaning not every prompt doesn't only need to have one skill, but you can combine them. So for example, you could combine an accessibility skill and a web design skill, and it would become even more powerful. The great thing, they're also, of course, plug and play, which means if you ever create a great skill, you can just copy and paste it, give it to your coworker, give it to the community, and everybody benefits. Then they load super fast and don't take a lot of tokens to load. And they run like real code. So you can, again, utilize reliable scripts instead of letting the AI guess every time and just checking that it works. And when you put these four things together, especially for something specific as building a Figma plugin, it was an absolute game changer for our workflow. And how to install a skill couldn't be in most cases even simpler. And every day there comes a new tool or framework out that makes it even simpler. But overall, if you find a skill, in most of the cases, it's either some sort of markdown file or a text file that you can just download. And then you need to find out, depending on what IDE or what code editor you're using, is it Cursor, is it Claude, or is it Codex, for example? Depending on that, you need to find out where your skills live, and then just basically take it, copy and paste it to the location, and that basically should be all. At that point, your agent should have it available, and you can always test it out by just calling, in most cases, just the / skill name, and your AI should have it available. Now, while skill collections, and maybe you've visited them before, are awesome, and there's already tens and tens of thousands of skills out there, also, because I am coming from cybersecurity, a bit of a general warning, because skills are powerful, but of course, with great power comes great responsibility. So while malicious actor could use skills where the 90% of the skill looks good, but then somewhere there's a small line letting your agent maybe do some things that you don't want. Like, for example, malicious skill that may cause prompt injection, things like context poisoning that maybe expose your API keys or secrets that you don't really want to be exposed somewhere, or maybe change your Git somewhere. So in general, you can stay safe by, first of all, making sure you read every skill you install at least once per hand. And of course, you can always, before installing, just copy and pasting the whole markdown file to either Claude or other AIs and asking it, hey, can you just do a general security check? Is there anything fishy you find out? And this way, just with 2 small steps, maybe taking 2 to 5 minutes, you can make sure that you're not running into trouble by just installing skills from somewhere. So maybe find some trusted sources and rely on those. So things like the skill collections from Anthropic are fairly safe. So while I wouldn't trust them blindly, I definitely have higher trust than just some random one I find on X or somewhere. So yeah, make sure you stay safe out there. Now, to get you started on building your first Figma plugin this weekend, hopefully, we even have something awesome to share. So during the hackathon, we had like 1 or 2 hours, because of course 48 hours is a very, very long time. Not really. So we basically built a Figma Plugin Developer Skill that provides the AI with everything it needs to build your first Figma plugin correctly, so that will save you a ton of tokens. Yeah, so after the hackathon, I refined it even more, and I'm happy to share it today. So instead, for the AI of constantly context switching and maybe queuing every time the Figma API and costing you tokens, you just install that skill. It has everything in there, and the AI instantly deeply knows, has this highly specific expertise. So it will know what's the best practices for kind of like the plugin architecture. It has clear references for the Figma API and understands how to build the AI and optimize the UI and optimize for performance. And it also includes, like you heard before, how do I build even the manifest JSON structure and best practices. So having the skill installed means that every time you ask Cursor to build something for your plugin, it already understands the context and best practices. So again, saving you tons of tokens and saving you from tons of bugs. So if you're planning to build a Figma plugin, and I hope a lot of you are now inspired, installing the skill is probably the highest value first step you can take, and it's free on my GitHub. So remember from before, read it through once yourself, check it for security. I will assure you that everything looks good, but again, vest it yourself, and then let's get started building your first plugin. Now, once the hackathon was over, we had like an awesome prototype plugin and everything worked good. But the bad news behind the scenes, it was a giant beast because we basically built prototype on prototype and never deleted anything. In the end, we had a Figma plugin, but it had 4,000 lines of HTML code and JavaScript code that nobody but the AI basically understand. And we never knew, okay, if we now add this one more feature, will everything fall down and everything break? So we knew we couldn't really release it like that and bring it out into the wild. So we went ahead and after the hackathon took some time, make a great refactor, went step by step. And in combination with our Figma plugin skill, we used the best practices and and untangled basically the mess to have now multiple files and basically have a very good architecture now. So it looks like a massive undertaking, but overall we used again also AI to be more efficient there and have now a solid foundation. So once the plugin is live and the user finds a bug, it will be a lot easier to fix. And of course, it's now also a lot easier to add new features and build upon it. Now, the best tool and plugin that you release helps nobody if nobody can find it. So once we got the plugin working, we also knew, okay, we want to do some marketing. This plugin is something that a lot of design system practitioners need. So we also built a small landing page for kind of like vibe marketing using Lovable. And the great thing about this is, so once you already have your plugin UI and you have some CSS and HTML styling, you basically have everything to give the AI as kind of like a bit as a little brand book where it then can take it and you can say, hey, please create, for example, a single page marketing landing page for me using the existing design guidance I have there. And for us, this took less than an hour and we had a great landing page. We generated some assets. And so basically the takeaway here is reuse everything you have from your plugin to also generate a little brand guideline to generate some marketing material so you don't need to start from scratch there. And the same is, of course, for once everything is ready and you're ready, you basically want to launch your plugin. So once you have your plugin and you go to Figma and now press basically publish, you will see a few steps that you need to take before. So here again, you have some opportunity to make sure that people can find your plugin in the Figma community, make sure to basically choose the right category, make sure to include some keywords so people can find your plugin there. And finally, don't skip on data security, the section of Figma. So of course, if people are maybe in an enterprise or company environment, they first need to request plugins to be allowed there. So any information you can give, if it's making any network calls or if you follow Figma's best practices, will help you there a lot. And so pulling everything together from our presentation and 6 key takeaways you can take. So first of all, plan before you prompt. Let's remember every minute you spend planning before prompting will save you an hour of debugging. Then make use of the right modes. So plan mode first, then agent mode for building, ask mode for understanding, and debug mode for fixing. Test early and often. The earlier you catch a bug, the easier it is to fix. Make sure to reuse your existing code for marketing. Your plugin CSS is basically your brand guide that you already created. And explore agent skills to transform your general AI into a specialized expert. So these 6 principles apply whether you're building a Figma plugin, a web app, or any other tool with AI assistance. And the specific tools may change, but the workflow stays the same. And we wanted to, of course, announce that the plugin is now live and you can use it, but it's still after a week a bit stuck in the review. So I am sure with our luck, it will be basically live, I guess an hour after the conference, if not by tomorrow morning, but it will basically be coming in the next days for sure. So like we said, we have an awesome marketing landing page. So if you really want that plugin, put your email in there and we will let you know the second it's live and you can grab it. It's free, and then go and replace and use it and find all your detached components there. And before we open up for questions, again, a huge thank you for the entire team, for the entire hackathon. It was an amazing experience, and we can't wait to now see all of your plugins created and what will you create in the next 48 hours, because it's a weekend, so let's use the time. So thank you very much.